The night was calm, with only the faint sound of wind rustling through the trees. A dim street lamp flickered in the distance, casting shadows across the sidewalk. A tall, elderly black man, dressed in a worn-out jacket and carrying a small bag, walked slowly down the quiet street, his cane tapping rhythmically against the pavement. He wasn't in any rush, enjoying the rare moment of peace. But as the man moved further down the street, headlights suddenly appeared from behind, cutting through the darkness. A young cop, around 28 years old, drove up in his patrol car, eyes immediately locking onto the old man. He slowed the car down, his gaze narrowing with suspicion. The old man hadn't done anything wrong, he was just walking, but the cop had already made his mind up. The cop slammed the car into park and got out, his boots hitting the pavement with purpose. "Hey you, stop right there." The old man stopped walking and turned to face him. His face was calm, composed. He was no stranger to situations like this. "Can I help you, officer?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. "Where are you headed, old man? What's in that bag?" The cop's voice was sharp, filled with an authority he had no intention of respecting. He took a few steps forward, his eyes scanning the man's face, looking for something he could latch onto, something that justified his suspicion. The old man glanced at him but didn't move. "Just heading home, officer. Nothing unusual." The cop scoffed, not believing a word. "Right, sure. I'll decide that. Show me your ID." The old man hesitated for a moment before reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a small wallet. But before he could show the officer anything, the cop stepped forward, pushing his hand away. "No," the cop sneered. "I don't trust you. I want you to show me right now." The tension in the air was thick. The old man felt his heart rate rise but kept his breath steady, maintaining his calm. "I'm just a man going home," he said quietly, trying to diffuse the situation. "I'm not your enemy." But the cop wasn't listening. His anger was already boiling over. "You think just because you're out here late, you can walk around and do whatever you want?" The cop's voice grew louder, filled with hate and assumption. "You people are all the same." Suddenly, the cop grabbed the old man by the arm and jerked him forward. The old man stumbled but didn't resist. "You don't get to touch me like that," the cop yelled, pushing the old man harder. Without warning, the cop struck the old man, delivering a hard punch to his gut. The blow sent the old man stumbling backwards, crashing to the ground. The cop stood over him, fists clenched, seething with anger. "You'll learn your place," he spat. For a moment, everything was still. The old man lay on the cold pavement, his chest heaving. The cop stood above him, sneering, feeling victorious. But as the old man slowly reached into his jacket, pulling out something small, the tension in the air shifted. The old man pulled out a badge. The cop stopped mid-sentence, staring down at the small, gleaming badge in the man's hand. His eyes widened in disbelief. "FBI?" The cop stepped back, his heart racing, as confusion and fear flooded his thoughts. He had just punched an old man, one who was now showing him a badge. But not just any badge, a FBI badge. The old man, despite the pain of the punch still radiating through his body, didn't get up immediately. He just sat there for a moment, steadying himself, before slowly rising to his knees. His eyes met the cop's, but there was no anger, just a calmness, a depth, a wisdom that the cop couldn't ignore. "You," the cop's voice cracked slightly. "You're FBI?" The old man took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, I am. And you just assaulted me." The cop stood there in silence, his mind racing. "But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you show me that earlier?" The old man paused for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Because you didn't need to know," he said simply. "You already made up your mind about me before you even knew who I was. And that's the problem, isn't it?" The cop blinked, processing the words, but they didn't make sense. He had just acted on impulse, on assumption, on prejudice. He hadn't given this man a chance. And now, standing before him, was someone who had endured a lifetime of challenges, a lifetime of pain and injustice. "Who are you really?" the cop asked again, this time with a gentler tone. He was starting to understand that this wasn't just about the badge. It was about the life behind the badge, the experiences that had shaped this old man into who he was. "I'm a man," the old man said softly, "just like you. But I've lived a lot longer and I've seen a lot more. I fought battles you can't even imagine, son." A flash of memory hit the cop like a wave. He saw a younger version of the old man marching through the streets during the civil rights movement, standing tall in the face of hate and violence, fighting for equality. The cop's heart sank as he realized how little he had understood about the struggles of people like the old man. He had lived his life shielded by privilege, never once questioning the systems that had put him in a position of power. "You have no idea what it's like," the old man continued, his voice filled with quiet wisdom, "to fight for something as basic as your rights, to walk through life every day and be judged by the color of your skin, to have your humanity questioned just because of where you come from or how you look. I've lived it." The cop didn't know what to say. All he could do was stand there, his mind spinning. He had always believed that the world was black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. But now, standing before him, was the stark reality that the lines weren't so clear. There was so much more to a person's story than the surface. The old man's voice softened as he continued. "It's easy to make assumptions, but it takes real strength to see beyond the surface, to understand the bigger picture. It's not about the badge, son. It's about what that badge represents and how you use it. It's about power and what you do with it." The cop looked at the old man, his chest tightening. He felt a weight on his shoulders, a weight of guilt, of shame, of understanding. "I'm sorry," the cop muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." The old man nodded, as if he had heard this apology many times before. "You're not the first to make assumptions, and you won't be the last. But it's never too late to change, son. You can still be better. It's not too late for any of us." The cop stood there, unsure of what to say next. His world had just been turned upside down, and he didn't know how to fix it. But he knew one thing he had to try. The old man didn't wait for a response. Slowly, he straightened up, adjusted his jacket, and began to walk away. His steps were slow, deliberate. He wasn't in a rush. He had learned the hard way that time was something you couldn't waste. As the old man walked into the darkness, the cop stood frozen in place, the weight of the encounter sinking in. He felt both ashamed and strangely hopeful. Maybe he could change. Maybe he could see the world differently. Maybe he could learn to be better. The cop stood there, watching the old man disappear into the night, his mind racing with a million thoughts. He had learned a valuable lesson tonight, one that would stay with him for the rest of his life. In a world divided by hate, the greatest strength is to be kind. It's never too late to change. The camera slowly pulled back, leaving the cop standing in the middle of the street, his posture slightly slumped, but his mind wide open to the possibility of growth and change. If this video touched your heart, then subscribe our channel for more engaging content.